Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Americans are very, very used to political scandal. They've had many of them, often involving money or sexual favours or pharmaceuticals, shall we say. But even they were absolutely knocked back on their heels when Piers Morgan on American television explained what had been happening in Scotland and explained how Nicola Sturgeon had been brought low. They were amazed. They were astounded. And this is a country that's had to put up with Bill Clinton. Anyway, we'll have a look at this article and about the way that Piers Morgan has rocked America with the revelations of what's happening in Scotland. It's amazing that they would be astounded by this. So it just goes to show how bad it is. Anyway, here we go. Right, so we have Piers Morgan, who goes on this live US primetime show. Now, I'll be clear up front. I don't want you to think that I happen to like Piers Morgan. I find him to be a particularly supercilious, smug oik, full of his own self-importance and self-pomp. But he did actually nail the problem on, nailed it on the head with this problem. And I think it is definitely worth the telling of the tale. So Piers Morgan destroys Nicola Sturgeon on US primetime TV, and the audience goes wild. Many people in the States hadn't heard about the Isla Bryson scandal. Well, they have now, after Piers Morgan went on a rant on one of the country's most popular chat shows. So Sturgeon's reputation isn't just destroyed in Scotland or in the whole of Britain, but it's now destroyed in the whole of the United States. They cannot believe what's going on. So a US TV audience reacted with shock and disbelief when Piers Morgan recounted the Isla Bryson scandal in a stunning monologue about the erosion of women's rights. And ultimately, that's what this is. This isn't about increasing the rights of trans people. Trans people automatically have rights. They're all enshrined in the same rights that everyone else has. But by pushing their rights, of course, you're removing rights. You're removing safety from women and children. The British commentator was appearing on Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO on Friday, April 14th, one of the most popular talk shows in the States, alongside a woke Democrat called Katie Porter. They were discussing the recent furore around trans woman Dylan Mulvaney's controversial ads for Bud Light and Nike. And just as a quick aside, if you don't know about them, Bud Light brought this out with Dylan Mulvaney, who's a man. He's biologically a man. He is physiologically a man. He's not had any operations. But he's wearing woman face, pretending to be a woman, and mimicking womanhood. And so Bud Light said, hey, we're woke, we'll do this, and they'll put a picture of him on the tin. And it's really backfired. Their sales are dropping left, right and centre. Their stock price fell. Nobody wants to be associated with it, so nobody's drinking it because they don't want to go, I ain't one drinking that kind of crap, So they're really taking a hit. They went radio silent for about 3 weeks. They released one advert which was like super pro USA, and it was ratioed to hell. It was utterly destroyed because everything they do now is seen through this lens of this woke wankery that they're pushing, and that was just there. Then Nike got their sports bra. They said, Who can we advertise? Who can we get to advertise this sports bra that's designed for women? Let's get a man in. And they got Dylan Mulvaney in, a man with no breasts whatsoever. I mean, I've got more breasts than him. And he's advertising this sports bra. It's a mockery of women. Well, anyway, Nike also have had massive kickback on this. So this is what happens. Go woke, go broke. And it is as simple as that. Anyway, getting back to this. They were discussing this recent furore about Dylan Mulvaney, which I've just explained. He says, when it comes to trans issues, this is Bill Maher saying, when it comes to trans issues, there seems to be no room for debate. You have to accept, lock, stock and barrel, everything they say, or else you are a bigot or you are shouted down. Porter argued, Dylan Mulvaney is free to express herself and live her gender identity, his gender identity. And people accuse people on the right of waging culture wars when trans people are being killed. Blasting Maher and Morgan for male insecurity. Morgan hit back. He says, let me give you an example of what happened in Scotland recently because it cost the First Minister of Scotland her job. She was a trailblazing woman in British politics, he said. and she'd been in that position for a number of years. It was the case of a male ara of women who, as a male, arred 2 women, and then at his trial suddenly put his hand up and said, "I identify as a woman," and as a result he was sent to a female prison. There was such an outcry that the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, came under huge pressure and incredibly doubled down and defended what had happened, and women understandably went nuts and asked, "What are you doing? Putting effectively a male ara of women into a woman's prison just because of limitless self-identification." When women talk about infringement into their safety and fairness and equality, this is what they are talking about, and people have to stand up. At this point, the studio audience, which he was, like I said, I don't like him, but he actually nailed that. He was completely right there. At this point, the studio audience, which had been stunned into silence, along with Mayor and Porter, by the events in Scotland earlier this year, erupted into loud cheers and applause. Morgan added, "Every time a woman stands up for women's rights, whether it's J.K. Rowling or Riley Gaines, whoever it may be, they get shamed, vilified, hounded, they have threats, and it is completely disgusting." And again, I find myself agreeing with Piers Morgan, which it goes against the grain, but I absolutely do agree with him on this. Writing about the show in his column in the New York Post, Morgan said, "The audience again clapped enthusiastically when I reminded Porter, who by now was staring at me with such withering contempt, what just happened in Scotland, where First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was forced to quit after endorsing a male ara of women being sent to a women's prison because he identified as a woman at his trial." And he's right, and this is what's happening, and this is why it is wrong, and this is why we need to reject this. No one is saying that if you're a trans man, a man who wants to dress as a woman, no one's saying you can't do that. No one is saying that if you want to be called, Shirley or Susan or whatever you want to be called at, no one is saying you can't do that. No one cares. But when you, as a man, as a physical man, want to compete against women in sport, that's wrong. That's unfair. When you, as a man, a physical man, want to go into a woman's prison, that is unsafe. And when you, as a man, want to go into changing rooms and expose yourself to women and children, that is a crime. And that's what they're saying. We're not saying you can't live your life. We're saying you can't stop other people from enjoying theirs or put fear, threat and intimidation onto other people. It is just wrong. And I shall come up, but I still can't believe I'm agreeing with Piers Morgan. And so it seems that Nicola Sturgeon is being vilified on both sides now of the Atlantic, and it's not the end. I think that as this spreads, as more and more people, especially now that the mainstream American media are going to pick up on this, I think it is going to become much more of a story around the world, not just here, but around the world. I think there'll be a lot more intense interest, and especially if, as the other revelations about it come out, I think if there is a court case, I think it won't just be the British press that will be interested. I can see now how the big American news corporations will definitely take an interest in this as a, as just as an example of a Western leader sort of being brought to court, dragged, as it were, dragged in chains, really, which is something I think that should happen. They should have, and somebody mentioned this in one of the comments about the perp walk, where you get the perpetrator handcuffed and marched out of the building and into a police car, but in full view of the press, so that the next day the pictures are splashed across the front of all the newspapers. I think that is something that we need to start doing, because it would just act as a deterrent for these people, knowing that would be the end of them. Their reputations would be sullied forever. Anyway, well done to Piers Morgan. Poison in my mouth saying that, but he did at least on this particular issue, he has at least come down on the side of angels, so maybe there's hope for him yet. Who knows? Anyway, thank you very much for listening. If you like what you see here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, but definitely leave a like. That's the only thing I ask. Leave a like. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. Try not to get anywhere near Piers Morgan. I think he's quite toxic generally. And goodbye.